open with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right, before we get into our approval of the minutes, I'd just like to take a moment of silence for a longstanding member of community, Mrs. Patricia Fogarty. All right, thank you, everybody. Approval of minutes. We have the motion. Is there a motion to approve the October 15th, 2019 executive session meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Is there a motion to approve the November 6, 2019 work session meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Motion to approve the November 18th, 2019 executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. And finally, a motion to approve our December 9th, 2019 executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next, we have our consent agenda. Is there any item that a member of the council would like to remove from our consent agenda? Right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item new business. Item number 11, motion to approve the replacement of one firefighter due to retirement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0.
Matt, could we
Item 12.
can we move up? What do we got here? Let me see. Let's do item 23. Can we move that up?
There's a motion to move item number 23 up to be the next item on the agenda.
So
Is there a
moved.
second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. All right, item 23. A motion to adopt an emergency ordinance providing for a moratorium on building and development under the provisions of Section 2-1-9B of the Town Charter.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. This item comes from Mr. Lima. I do know that there, before we get into that, if Mr. Lima wanted to go to the town solicitor regarding a possible amendment that we discovered regarding state law.
Yeah, so Mark, can you explain, actually what we'll be able to do here with the possibilities that people will still be able to do remodeling?
Okay, there are two pieces. Before we get into a variation of what was proposed, I had a conversation with Steve Marsala this morning, or actually this afternoon, and he had been speaking with Jill from the planning department, and the way Section 4 was drafted on the ordinance, it created a conflict with state law. So Section 4, I handed out right before the meeting, a suggested change whereby we would be striking reference to the planning board, the zoning board of review, and the zoning board sitting in its capacity as the planning board of appeal. We would strike reference to those bodies, and we would qualify the application by inserting the words any new or incomplete applications. And the reason for that is that the way this was drafted, it prevented the planning board and the other boards from sitting and hearing matters for a period of 60 days. And the state law provides that if there is something before the planning board that is not acted on within 90 days, then it's deemed approved. So we have matters that have been before the planning board, and if we sit out the 60 days, they just default to being approved. And it's not something we want to do. We don't want to basically negate the ability of the planning board and the zoning board to make the appropriate decisions. So that's a necessary modification that needs to be made. Rick, what you were referring to is in staying with section 4, it's a prohibition on any construction is the way it's drafted now. And you know, I've heard all sorts of suggestions, from emergency repairs to renovations to additions, and it starts getting very complicated with trying to define what those things actually are, who makes the determination. And so, in my opinion, Steve Marcella's opinion, the simplest way to address this is to qualify any construction and limit that to any new construction, which I think is the crux of it. So, you know, roof repairs, kitchen remodels, I mean, really anything that's not new construction would be allowed. That would be, I think, administratively the easiest way to, and the cleanest way to move forward, and it certainly then wouldn't impact people who are making improvements for ADA compliance or, you know, updating their house.
So what I'll do is, the first of those you discussed, if a council member wants to make a motion for an amendment which would reflect the first item, which was the reflection of state law, and that's in front of all of us, and if
I'll
somebody
make
wants
that
to...
motion.
I'll second.
All right, so that motion is that this is to amend the underlying motion. It would remove in section 4 the phrase from the planning board that reads, the planning board, zoning board of review, the zoning board of review acting its capacity as planning board of appeal, and then it would add the language after it would say any new or incomplete application. Right, so that's what that's doing there. So then what I'll do is we'll turn it over now to Mr. Lima, because it was your original, and then we'll vote. We have to vote on that amendment and any of future amendments, but I'll turn it over to you for the underlying item.
So again, I put this motion in basically because for the last 20 years at least, if not even longer, some people who haven't lived here, construction in neighborhoods where you have R10 zoning, residential, there are houses that are going up. They're becoming multi-bedroom units. And neighborhoods are upset. Neighborhoods are upset. They've been speaking on it long before I got elected. And for me, I just felt that something had to be done. And now we're implementing this proposal and this ordinance. And we're going to sit down and we're going to go over everything. And we have a time frame, and it's going to be a tough time frame because there's a lot that goes on. But we want to be able to give people in this town, no matter where you live. I didn't pick out a specific area or a street or any of that. I looked at the town as a whole. And we want people to have a residential neighborhood with a quality of life. So this is why I put this out there.
Is there any other commentary from the council?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree with Ricky on this one. This is something that multiple council members have been speaking to the solicitor about, working on an emergency ordinance like this. This emergency ordinance is not the solution. We know that. It's just a way to get to a solution. Because I think, you know, most people up here and a lot of people in town understand that seeing dormitories go up in small streets in residential areas is not something that's a sustainable occurrence and something that is valuable to the town, really, or to the people that live in town. So we need to fix our zoning and our building codes to really get rid of these loopholes, because these are not structures that should be built in neighborhoods. So I'm behind this as well. You I think we definitely want to amend this further to add, to add the new construction clause or wording. I guess my only question would be, and maybe it really doesn't matter because it's only 60 days, but I'm assuming new construction would still ban smaller outbuildings and things that are not really
Existing.
Yeah, so if someone was going to put up a shed, they wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, it's a minor inconvenience, I guess, for at least 60 days. But I'm just wondering if it's worth adding other wording as well to cover those things, or just say, hey, you got to wait till the spring for that. So.
And so I think in a lot of cases, especially this time of the year, trying to excavate, so with some shed type work, the shed has to be grounded so that, again, it's hurricane proof and all of that. So I don't see a lot of that happening now. And we're looking by March, hopefully, to have this, settled out and people can continue. But we're not looking to put any contractors out of business. You'll still be able to do remodeling. And I think that that is important. But the rest of it, we need to put the brakes on. And it's been long overdue.
Anyone else from the council?
I'm also in agreement with this. Thanks, Rick, for doing this. I'm hoping that maybe Jim can shed a little light about the process. I know you mentioned there'll be public hearings, there'll be opportunity for people to speak on this. It's just not going to be something that the council will just bring. Can you talk a little bit to the town about what your thoughts process are as far as how this will roll out?
It'll give us 2 months to address the zoning laws and the building codes in town, and the buildings department and the community development is really going to be under the gun over the next couple of months. But we will have to rewrite a significant portion of it to address situations that have come up in neighborhoods where 2 homes are proposed with 8 bedrooms in each home. So that has potential of 32 people or more living in them, and perhaps maybe 32 vehicles. So you could see how this would impact the neighborhood. And so we have a timeline to get this done. And we'll work with the solicitor and community development and buildings, and we'll listen to the people, too, for their input on it.
The other thing, Matt, I just wanted to add, too, it's also something that the zoning board was looking for. I testified at a zoning board hearing not long ago, and one of the members, I believe it was Mr. Kennedy, we were asking, the people testifying were asking the zoning board to act, and his response back was, they're within the law. We need to change the law. So that's what we're addressing now, to be able to help have the zoning board make some important decisions, but even they recognize we need to change the law.
Patrick?
Yeah, I'm glad to see the town has amended this broad-brushed approach of banning all permits. So I'm glad we amended that just to centralize it. Excuse me?
Did we add new
we
construction?
got to approve it, and
Yeah,
then we got to approve it. So I'm a property rights guy, as I've been saying, and I'm all on board with property rights, but when it starts infiltrating and encroaching on somebody else's property rights, then something needs to be done. So I can support this. What the town manager has suggested, that new construction, temporary ban on permits, so we can cobble together some kind of ordinance to get a handle on this. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn it to the public.
Sorry. I just want to add one more thing about the emergency ordinance, because I know it can seem possibly to some people like this is an extreme measure. It is something that's actually fairly common if you look around the country and even in Rhode Island. So Newport just did a 6-month moratorium on new development in the north end of town. Montgomery County, Maryland, they did a 1-year moratorium on all new residential building. Then we have areas down in South Carolina that have done the same. They've done it for multifamily structures. Where else? We got Florida. Multiple towns of Florida have done the same thing. A lot of times it's the same impetus for doing this. It's these really large structures going up that are not really residential. They are because there's people residents living in them, but they're really commercial ventures. And so we're not doing anything that isn't being done in other places. And again, it is just a way to get to a more permanent solution. So I just wanted to make that point.
And we've done it in the past. It was, I believe, Jim was telling me in the late 80s, we put a moratorium on when the condominiums were starting to develop.
1987.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to the public. Carlene?
Carlene Town, Wood Hill Road. We all sympathized with the gentleman who came before you at the last town council meeting to beg you to put a stop to the construction of these mega houses built with the intent of renting to as many as 8 unrelated students with all their guests and cars. I myself have neighbors across the street who live in Pennsylvania but rent their home on HomeAway. That house is a 3-bedroom. One weekend, there were 18 cars parked on the lawn, so no parking violation. We neighbors watched as sleeping bags were brought into the house. It was rented to someone who was conducting business meetings, training people in what I think is called a pyramid business, for selling essential oils at home parties, sort of like Tupperware parties. Concerned that the house was being overloaded, I called my neighbor in Pennsylvania and told her jokingly that I was her septic system watchdog and feared that 18 or more people, because it was not one person per car, would tax her septic tank and leach field. To make a long story short, she said she was not aware that this sales pitch to so many was reason for the rental. She said she would vet her renters more carefully in the future. Although I sympathize with anyone dealing with the intrusive nature of these 1 to 2 night rentals, or even the entire semester rentals by URI students in one-family neighborhoods, I don't believe that the town needs to enact a moratorium on building and development. Now, granted, I wrote this before you just made your amendments. I think the town needs to enforce its own laws to prevent these 8-bedroom rooming houses constructed with building permits for a one-family unit from being erected in residential neighborhoods. Instead of a total moratorium that would adversely affect those people who want to put an addition on because of an expanding family, or who have bought property and want to build their truly one-family dream house, because perhaps it's time to enforce what is already on the books, that being Section 2.2 of Section 2 of the zoning ordinance that defines what a single-family dwelling is. If you want to make a new law, I think it should be that anyone who violates the zoning laws should not get a slap on the wrist, but should be fined well over and above any income derived from the illegal use of that property. I understand your amendments, and I agree, but I think there might be some problems and unnecessary hardship on people who have legitimate reasons to build at this time. One final note, Ricky's motion as written could put us into another costly legal battle with builders and homeowners, and smacks more of campaigning for the next election on his part than genuine concern for the welfare of this town. Thank you.
Richard.
I have proposed this solution many times. I'll do it again. Anyone who rents a house is in a business and automatically gets the 140% rate for the taxes. Now, at the planning level, that will stop some people, because you might not have the project be economically viable if you're going to pay significantly more in property taxes. And yet council after council has said, well, we don't want to do that. Well, this is how to stop it at the planning level. So the person who's planning these escapades in a house will realize that there is an additional cost, property taxes based on what these property are. They're businesses.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Name's Bob Chartrand. I'm sorry I don't know everybody's name. My first town council meeting in my life.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. while I agree with the spirit of what, is trying to be done, I am actually here to beg the council to not approve this motion as it's currently defined, even with the amendments you had. I may be an unintended or maybe I could be severely punished by this. Well, I think it could happen. I am building just a single-family, 3-bedroom, 3-bath. I'm a days away from submitting all of my paperwork for a permit. In my neighborhood, there's, you can't rent anyway, then it's not my goal. My goal is to finally build my dream house here in Narragansett. And there is a potential penalty where if you don't start soon enough, I could see things such as extreme as losing my lot. Not to mention I've already closed my construction loan, and there's penalties there with there's time frames for everything. The intent is for these 6-bedroom houses or more that are clogging up neighborhoods, and I fully agree with that part of it because I drive by and I see that stuff. That's not what I'm doing. And, it's even mentioned by the fire marshal's letter, Section D in the agenda here tonight, but Section 4, I was just pointing out, is really a blanket statement. And if it goes through as a blanket statement, I'm not going to be able to start building my house, and I could see penalties as much as losing everything. And I don't know how I wouldn't want to be basically in charge of somebody's financial ruin because of a moratorium on building when I'm not actually even the target of the intent of this motion. And I can only, I guess, really hope you consider changing this motion to not be a blanket on all new construction, but as the woman before me had said, it seems that there are already some ways that you can, when reviewing I'm doing the building permit, you see how many bedrooms, you see all these things. A big red flag, I see an 8-room house with no bedrooms, no closets or something, whatever. That's kind of, I think there already be ways to manage and not penalize somebody like me who's just trying to build their single-family house with zero intent to rent. In fact, my deeds and restrictions, I can't rent. And that's fine with me because I don't want a neighborhood that does that. But as it's written now, I'm in a very bad spot. And I really would hope that you reconsider how this is written so I can actually go forward and build my house.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Hi, David Rudy, 125 Caswell. Wasn't planning on speaking on this, but as someone who lives in the Pier area next to a 6-bedroom raised ranch that has had 6 students in it for the past 4 years during the school season, and the family that owns the property there in the summer, I can tell you we actually find that the kids are quieter than the people that live there, but that's a separate issue. We looked at that property and asked what kind of problems there are with kids renting, students renting, and the answer came back that once a year in May, there's a party there and it gets a little bit loud. Well, end of school year, we can deal with that. The landlord is very diligent. The rental agreement calls for expulsion if they get a red sticker. The past 2 years, we've had the police come, and they have unloaded the house from about 50 to 100 kids. It wasn't out of control, but it was definitely something that doesn't belong in a residential neighborhood. I'd like to support the lady who was here a couple of speakers ago saying this is an enforcement issue. I can't imagine why, with 30 people in a 3-bedroom house, the fire code wouldn't be violated, that the noise ordinance wouldn't at least pique someone's interest, and that parking would be allowed. So again, is this an enforcement issue? As someone who finished their basement, I can see where someone could easily finish a basement, put 3 bedrooms downstairs and 3 bedrooms on the first floor and have a 6-bedroom rooming house. This is an enforcement issue, and you can deal with the corporate rooming house through different avenues than shutting off all building permits. And I agree with the gentleman before. I think this opens the town up to lawsuits from the gentleman who just spoke, costing him money, and having this council have to hire our town solicitors organization once again and spending town money needlessly for a poorly drafted ordinance. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else?
Gary Moore, Tobago Trail. I own a lot at Tobago Trail, 100 by the double lot, buildable. For 3 years, I've been going back and forth trying to get a hookup to a sewer, which is 18 feet from my property. I'm constantly told, no, no, no. But now that I have to go down, I look out on the street and I see there's an 800+ connection for the Bonnet Shores Beach Club. Now, in one summer, they're going to use more than I would use in 18 and 30 years. Now you're telling me, I was going to start building my house this year, my retirement home. And now I'm being told that I'm not going to be able to build it. I mean, I don't know what's going on with this town. It's no, no, no. No comment?
Is there anyone else? Yes, Carol.
Add one thing, Matt. I know Rick's ordinance is for 60 days, but I do believe that it is his hope and our town's hope that we'll be able to do it much quicker. Correct? I mean, so we could actually expedite this in a month. I know that this is going to be, Mr. DeLuca, this is going to be your project. I don't know they're going to leave the town hall, but we're aiming to beat that 60-day. Correct, Jim?
It'll be their number one priority in community development and building.
All right, go ahead, Carol.
Good evening, Carol Stewart, Foster Lane, Narragansett. Listening to what I've heard, and I obviously was late, I did hear some of it before I left on the television. The motion is for the referendum to put a hold on development of lots, and however, now people are bringing up issues of students and a lot of other things into this motion. And as I read the background material that was provided, and I was very impressed with the background material, I was impressed with the details and the clarity of the facts presented by the fire marshal, as well as the information provided under the charter, that the last several pages, because it's been a number of years that I have worked on these issues along with committees, other people, neighborhood associations. And so I see a mix and a conflict in some of the potential for where people seem to think this is going. Our rentals and the number of bedrooms are an issue to me, because when houses are purchased, they're to be rented, not lived in by families or single people, but by students. And the first thing they do, and I call them predatory investors, because that's the majority of them who have taken over the rental properties in our town, they add more bedrooms. So I have an 8-bedroom house across the street from me. I call it the Boutique Hotel. And then there's a 7-bedroom a block away. And the front lawn is covered with parking and cars, et cetera. And so there are violations taking place, And these places do have to be reclassified as suggested by the fire marshal. Also could be called dormitories, which the town of Smithfield did years ago because of the Bryant University's rental issue. However, at the same time, if ordinances are instituted which then take into consideration the number of violations that are currently in place in these properties, then the town will be able to address the affordable housing issue, keep full-time residents from fleeing, young families and singles will be able to purchase. The real estate prices are out of control, as revealed by some statistics that I received from a realtor about the increase in the purchase of houses in Narragansett.
Carol,
And
thank
the
you.
prices. So therefore, my contention is that either you're dealing with the moratorium or you're dealing with violations that need to be controlled by relabeling what these houses are, which are single-family homes.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank
All
you.
right, before going forward, you'll see at 8 o'clock we have, but it's a public hearing, yeah, 8 o'clock. So public hearing, we're going to come back to this item. It's only a motion to schedule a public hearing. This item, though, this is a scheduling of an ordinance, and I don't know who's here on this item.
Can I just speak for a second?
No, not yet, not yet.
No, for the last thing.
Not yet, sir. Yeah,
When?
let me just, in 2 seconds, let me get through this. But I want to apologize to the town for a miscommunication on this motion to schedule a public hearing. This was regarding recreational vehicle heights, but what it also now includes is information about length of boats. So unless the council wants to go forward with it, the planning board won't be meeting again until February 19th. I think we should kind of start this from scratch. This was about recreational vehicles, and I was hoping that we could just withdraw this motion to schedule and not go forward with the hearing on this, unless the council, if anyone's uncomfortable with that.
Well, I'm not totally comfortable with it. I was under the impression that this was going to go to planning, and then there was going to be a lot of discussion and amendments to what's in there, and there's really no intent to change anything for boats, as you mentioned.
But it's in the ordinance right now.
Yeah, but
So
I
that
think Jim, didn't you just, we received an email from Jim saying that this this updated ordinance is basically a combination of a few different things, and that through the process of the, the discussions and the meetings with planning, we'll be editing that down to what we're intending, which is just for RV height increase. So instead of delaying it,
So I can look for a motion withdraw. I can read off
Well,
the
can I
motion
just get
and
a
we can
quick-
schedule it.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
I'll put out the motion. I mean, if that's what you want. I was
excuse me
thinking.
first. I'm just going to keep talking for a second. Thank you. Jim, do you mind reiterating what you sent us today in your email?
The draft was prepared by Brent in Community Development, and it's basically an amalgamation of several other communities' ordinances, and he actually went basically above and beyond. He did a very thorough job with it, but it goes forward just to try to get the ball rolling before the summer is upon us, and with a public hearing, Community Development and the council can amend it as they wish.
So we can take any boat restriction or any additional restrictions to any boat ownership or storage could be taken out through the process.
The council, with the assistance of the solicitor, has the ability to amend any ordinance, yes.
So my concern is just pushing this back and delaying it. We're trying to get that RV height increase, and nobody wants to do anything with boats, so we could just take all the boat.
Well, why don't we cut to the chase? Is there consensus here to get an RV in your yard up to 15 feet? Right now, it's what, 12 and a half feet, 12 feet?
9.
9. Who the hell has an RV that's 9 feet? Okay?
I'm going to look. We either can make. I'll make them. We can read off the amount if you want to have scheduling a public hearing. I was looking for a motion to withdraw this item so we could fix it so that it doesn't include the boats.
Well, I think I can,
Is
I
there-
think I can agree with you on withdrawing
Yeah.
the whole workshop if everybody has consensus of raising the height of an RV in your yard to 15 feet.
Which is what we were going to have a new
I mean,
attachment,
if
so
we get a
that's why.
consensus here, we'll just have an agenda item on the next meeting, altering the ordinance. There's no
So-
workshop, there's no boats or anything else. It's just cut to the chase.
Okay, so we're going to withdraw this item tonight, all right, based on that. I just wanted to inform everybody of that if they had come for that, all right? And now we're going to return to item number 23. All right, thank you.
Rick, you're on board with that, right? 15 feet? Okay, it's 3. Okay, good.
All right, yes. Item number 23.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was late. I got stuck in traffic. I was a builder, and I know when you go to get a permit, the parking is based on bedrooms. So for every bedroom you have to have 2 off-street parking spots. So if you build a 3-bedroom house, you have to have 6 parking spots. So if you put 18 cars in the yard and you only have room for 6, you call the police and you say they got 18 cars parked over there and they're not parking in the parking area. What could be easier than that? So you're going to not, this guy that wants to build a house, what are you going to do? Make him wait a year? Because you're going to put a moratorium on building on a lot that he's got. He wants to build a family house, 3-bedroom house. He's got 6 off-street parkings. So, I mean, it's easy, simple, you know? I don't know. I don't get the big problem with you have to put a moratorium on something. And I don't know. No one builds a raised ranch with 14 bedrooms or whatever, and 30 kids living in it, and 40 cars. That's an exaggeration of everything, whatever. If they come to stay for the night and they park on the grass, they're not in a designated area, you knock on the door, say, move the car, or you're going to get a ticket. Move the car, or park on top of your friend's car, whatever. You don't need to put a moratorium. Just tell them to get off the grass. So, and there was something else I was going to say, but kind of jogged my mind as I was coming over because I was thinking about all the stuff I found around town about you. But I'll wait
That's
for
not,
that.
yeah, that's not right here.
What else? What else was a problem? Except for the
Well,
off-street
what do you
parking?
have to say about so the moratorium, you would say you don't think there's a need for the moratorium?
No, I don't see any point for it. We already got, when you go to get a building permit and you want to build a 3-bedroom house, you have to have 6 off-street parking. If you want to build 4, you got to have 8. If you want to build 2, you got to have at least 2 or 4. So, I mean, it's already in place. You don't need anything. Just got to enforce it. Go down to Eastwood Look, say get off the grass, or you're going to get a ticket. Can't park on the road, whatever. It's not a big deal. I mean, you're going to punish a guy that wants to move into town, build a house, because it's a moratorium on it. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Someone wants to put a addition on their house with adding 4 bedrooms to it, but they only got a parking area for 3 bedrooms. Well, you can't do it unless you want to put your whole yard in a parking lot. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, yes.
Hi, my name is Robin LeClaire, Narragansett resident. I'm also a realtor, and I work with a lot of investors. My first question is, you say that you want to get to this right away. Could it go past 60 days? Could it go past 60 days into the summertime?
The emergency ordinance is 60 days.
Okay, so it can't be extended?
I believe it can be extended once for 30 days,
So potentially 90 days?
but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, so potentially 90 days. This could be extended. To me, this is another attempt at, because the no more than four unrelated did not go through, and it was proven unconstitutional, this, to me, seems like a second attempt at stopping more building for possible student and summer rentals. Yes, I agree with the 8 bedrooms, going on a dead end, with the fire safety, not being able to go right through, yes, that's an issue. But that's what we have to work on. As far as one of my clients that I just sold a property to that wants to live here for his dream house that is under a construction loan time limit, he's going to get penalized. And I've been through that, and I know that that's very costly. So I would really hope that, you know, there's answers to this as soon as possible, because it is affecting a lot of our lives, including my profession as a realtor.
All right, the first thing we have is that amendment, so I'm going to, and then we have another amendment after that, so.
And I have one more question for Mark. I had a question for Mark.
Okay.
Mark, is there any way we can whittle down that ordinance to 4 bedrooms and over? And that will take care of these two gentlemen.
I consulted with, Steve, and we talked about it a lot.
More than 4 bedrooms?
You can do anything you want. We know that, and you can ask Tony, but there are many people who go seek a permit to build a 3-bedroom home and then have this expansive living area or great room, and then the minute it's up, they divide it and, call it another 3, 4 bedrooms. So I think it would be easy to circumvent the purpose of the moratorium, but you can do anything you want. The goal here was, as explained by the people seeking it, was to try to, for the immediate future, put a halt to new construction so that zoning and building can put the appropriate safeguards in place to the extent that that they're available. So it's a very complicated matter. It is, we have rooming house ordinance. It doesn't address the problem. We have boarding houses. It doesn't address the problem. We have parking. It doesn't address the problem. There is no effective way to enforce it at this point. It just simply, there is no enforcement ability on the town's part. So it's a complicated problem, and as Mike DeLuca has stated, that you put something in place without a lot of thought, it can have ramifications, unintended ramifications and consequences. So there are going to be people affected here that spoke out. I mean, there is no easy solution here. It's complicated, and there are a lot of moving pieces. So yes, you can limit it to 3, but it wouldn't stop somebody who wants to build an 8-bedroom applying for a 3-bedroom home and then just putting 8 bedrooms in.
Well, wouldn't they have to redo all the plans? I don't think they would do that in 60 days.
They would leave the expansive areas open, and then they would just do it illegally.
I'm willing to take the word of these two gentlemen that they want to build a 3 or 4-bedroom house. I think we should whittle down this ordinance to more than 4 bedrooms.
We're going to do this first amendment. If somebody wants to talk on this amendment right now, because then we're going to have a second amendment. You've already spoken on this. You will. You'll be able to. But let me get through. Right. Let me get through this. Okay. We got the First Amendment on. So, if anyone wants to speak to that from the public who hasn't spoken, okay. So this First Amendment that was brought up at the beginning is going to have Section 4 read, for the period of 60 days following the passage of this ordinance, all town agencies and all town employees shall neither accept, process, approve, deny, or in any way act upon any new or incomplete application, plan, permit, license, and/or fee for any construction or use governed by this emergency ordinance for said period of time. So all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that's motion approved 5-0. So then, is there a second amendment that somebody wants to make regarding the new construction issue?
So I make that motion.
And Mark, do you have language on that you'll be able to walk us through?
It's as simple as inserting new in between the words any and construction.
In Section 4?
In Section 4.
Okay.
Unless you decide that you want to be more specific with what construction will be allowed.
Okay, so this would be amending Section 4, and it would now read at the end, for any new construction or use governed by this emergency ordinance. Is there a second for that amendment?
Second.
All right, so discussion on that. I'm just going to ask the council first of all, and then go to the public, right? Anybody from the council want to speak to that before I go to the public?
Just a quick question. I don't know if Mark or if maybe Mike DeLuca might be the best person to ask for this, but it seems everyone really is interested in the time component. That is a big part of this. How quickly can we get it done? Are there consultants out there that we could hire on to help Mike so that we can expedite the process and beat that 60-day deadline down as low as possible? Is that possible?
I would defer to Jim and Mike on that. I think, I don't think it's as quick as everyone would like it to be. I think the solutions have to be identified, vetted, and then once that's done, of course, you have the notices, the drafting, the readings, and the adoption. So just by definition, you know, if you're trying to expedite an ordinance, it's generally 2 meetings, which is a month. And like I said, there are a lot of moving pieces here. So, you know, Mike and Jill can probably speak to how quick they think they can come up with good suggestions for the town council to consider.
And I'm happy to, and we'll have to see what everyone else here says as well, but if you need some help, I'm happy to vote to bring in a consultant to help you guys out.
One thing on this issue, we will call special meetings if necessary to have first and second readings of ordinance changes that are proposed by the working group of staff that's going to put this together. And at some point, we're going to have those hearings. So if that's necessary, we will call special meetings for that effect. Is anyone else from the council? All right. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. There is already stuff in place that protects all this kind of stuff. You don't need to do anything. Someone gets a permit and builds a 3-bedroom house with 1,000 million foot rooms. They have to have a 4-foot opening, and they have to have no closets. Anytime after they get their CO, the building inspector can come back and go into that house and make sure that there's no beds, no closet, no doors. It's simple as that. You got 18 cars in the yard, call up the town, say, I think they got 5 bedrooms instead of 3. It's already in place. You don't need nothing. It's already there. That's it. You don't need nothing. I've been building houses for 30 years. I know all that stuff. You can't do it. You get a permit for 3 bedrooms, you get 3 bedrooms. You say you got an office, you say you got a family room, you say you got this, you say you got that. Tony or whoever goes in, he sees the 4-foot opening and no closet, whatever. They bring in an armoire. At any time after that, he can make an appointment, whatever, to go back in that house, make sure there's no doors on there, no closets, no walls knocked down, no nothing, no walls added. It's already in place. I don't know why you're making such a big deal about nothing. All it takes is a phone call. You're wasting a lot of energy on nothing. It's already there. Mr. Santilli will tell you the same thing. You can't do it, you can't do it. It's a law. So you don't have to do anything. Guy wants to build a 5-bedroom house, he's got to have 10 off-street parking. He's got to have 5 bedrooms. He wants to have a 20 by 80 family room, and after you leave, he wants to divide it up. Can't do it. Neighbors see it, see the guys over there working on the house, call up. Tony comes in and says, out. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thanks for letting me speak again.
Just restate your name and address.
My name is Bob Chartrand. I'm currently living in Massachusetts, hoping to move down here soon, building my new house, but I've been in South County for 13 years. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, I don't have my glass, I can't read your name, but very selfishly, it's pure genius saying, you know, hey, what about 4 bedrooms and down? And that kind of solves my problem. And I agree with you. You know, some other comments have been made. It is enforceable. There's already, you know, the code's in place. I mean, I built a deck around a pool back when I lived in Wakefield, and I forgot to have the guys come and inspect the depth of the hole. I had to go and, dig a hole alongside every one of the sonotubes to prove the depth. I mean, if you build a three-bedroom home and then and you come back in and there's all these other bedrooms, the town has a right to tell them to take it all down. I mean, they would have made me take my whole deck down if I didn't show and prove how deep those holes were. So everything's in place. And I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know how a town can put something in place that's going to have such a significant financial impact on me. I haven't even had a chance to grasp what it's going to be because I haven't had a chance to call the bank yet. I don't know what's going to happen. And specific in my neighborhood, if I don't start construction in a certain amount of time, they can take my lot back. This is devastating. This isn't an issue of what it's addressed to be. And again, I think there's enforcement ways that are already in place to go and bust up 20 cars on a front grass of a house that doesn't basically have an opportunity to ruin my life. That's what's going to happen.
Yes, Steve.
Thank you, Council Member. Stephen Ferrandi, 44 Sylvan Road. Rick, I applaud you for putting this on because you are exactly right. This is something, you said around 20 years, it's probably about 25 to 30 years in the coming. I really don't think all the people in Narragansett understand how much this has really impacted the neighborhoods. Let's just go through a little scenario. People have been trying to fight the Reuben houses and boarding through the years. We've been getting beaten down in court. We've had other issues. But this is what happens now legally in the town. You can come in on a 50 by 100 lot that's on sewers, put an 8-bedroom house up, basically call it a rooming and boarding. You look at some of the ads, it looks like a hotel, okay? So all this is doing is the town with legitimate fire codes and things that really should have been going on the whole time, the last 25 years. So it's not drastic. It's something that really needed to be done because it's changing fabrics of neighborhoods. You can't get single-family people in here because investors beat you out on the property because of what they can do with the property. 8 bedrooms, 7 bedrooms, rooming, boarding, all that. We've heard the stories before. So this is a good first step to say, stop. Let's really take a look at this and start figuring out what it should be. And Rick, I applaud you again, and I really think that anybody that doesn't vote for this ordinance isn't for Narragansett neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Couple things. This is Robin LeClaire again, 27 Orlando Drive. Back to my client who has the construction loan over here. I mean, he is building in a neighborhood that has an HOA restrictions, okay, that won't allow for rentals at all. So I'm trying to back him up because I sold him a piece of land. So maybe that would be one thing to put in the amendment, that if it's a new construction in a development that has restrictions on certain things. And like he said, I mean, if he doesn't get going on building, I mean, he could lose the land because that was part of the purchase and sales agreement that he signed, which is legally bound, that he had to build in a certain amount of time. That being said, as far as Mr. Ferrandi that just spoke about the 7 and 8 bedrooms, first of all, I do understand that there has to be some kind of fire code, okay? If we have to put in sprinklers, a sprinkler system, or any kind of remote type of firebox that's connected to the fire department, yes, that's a solution. I think that can be worked out sooner than later. You're not going to stop people from building 7 and 8 bedroom houses in Narragansett. You're not going to stop it. You can fight all you want, you can delay the progress, but you're not going to stop it. If it's on town sewer and town water, and you're with the building codes, and you're meeting all the requirements and the zoning ordinances, and you have a legal area to build that house and you get the proper permitting, I'm sorry, you're not going to stop that from happening. What will stop the problems is having a property manager or a realtor or a responsible homeowner to be on top of those students if it's a student rental and to stop the problems. Okay, that's what we are missing in this town, because you have a lot of those houses in Eastward Look where you have these out-of-state landlords that don't give a crap, but they just give a crap about the money, okay? Whereas you have someone like me, a very responsible realtor / property manager that is on top of the problem every single day, okay? So all I'm saying is you can't stop the 7 and 8 bedroom homes. As long as they are legal and meet the codes, that's how it's going to be.
All right, is there anyone else? Yes, Paul.
Paul Zonfrillo, 7 Winwood Circle. There is an emergency. That's why we need an emergency ordinance. And if somebody says you're not going to stop the building of 7 and 8 bedroom houses, that's the emergency. That's exactly what we keep hearing. What do you expect? You live in Narragansett. Don't expect residential property to be twisted into commercial. We don't, but it's kind of like blaming the victim, like we sort of deserve it, right? Because we live down here. When your house is burning down, you don't ask how much it costs to put it out, right? So unfortunately, it's a drastic measure, but it's needed because our ordinances are antiquated. And you know, this previews the fight that's to come. This previews, you know, oh, my kids are great. Right, Steve's looking at 16 bedrooms across the street. I don't think you see that in the pier very often. Maybe you do. But everybody's going to say, oh, the kids next to me are fine. We're getting overrun because of the money. Now, as far as the gentleman who put down the deposit, he doesn't know what his damage is going to be. He doesn't know. My suggestion is that you pass the ordinance, and perhaps if there's a hardship basis, you can work with somebody on a hardship basis. But I would say that you don't dilute the ordinance, and we work with people if they need to be worked with, if somebody's really going to be hurt. But as Jesse well pointed out, these bans happen all the time. You know, perhaps the bank will take that into consideration. But the question is, like, when's it going to stop? This is going to stop the madness. This will put a halt on things. It is absolutely necessary because what we're doing is not working. And insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We've heard all these arguments before, just enforce the laws. Well, then how do you get 16 people coming to live in a residential district on an Airbnb or in a summer rental? So I applaud Ricky for putting it on. I would say don't water it down, and if there's people you need to work to on an individual basis, work on an individual basis rather than making an exception and watering it down. The solicitor did great work in putting this together. Take his recommendation. Please pass it as is.
Is there anyone else? No, you've spoken on the amendment, sir. You've already spoken. Is anyone else? All right, on this amendment, then, this is just adding the word new. All in favor of this amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Motion approved, 5-0. And so now the underlying, I'm just going to reread how it's newly amended. So this is the attached ordinance, and Section 4 now would read, for the period of 60 days following the passage of this ordinance, all town agencies and all town employees shall neither accept, process, approve, deny, or in any way act upon any new or incomplete application, plan, permit, license, and/or fee for any new construction or use governed by this emergency ordinance for said period of time. So
I move that we add and further whittle it down to more than 4 bedrooms.
All right, is there a second for that? All right.
You know, I don't think
there's no second. Is there a second? If there's not a second,
build a house and then add
Patrick, if there's no
bedrooms later.
second, there's no discussion. Is there a second? All right, hearing none. All right, we're going to vote on the on the underlying ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion approved 5-0. Thank you. All right, we're going back to item number 12, a motion to approve the request from URI Kappa Sigma Fraternity conduct a polar plunge for military heroes campaign at the town beach on Sunday, February 23rd, 2020, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., subject to state and local regulations.
So.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Are there any questions for the Parks and Recreation Department from the council?
I spoke with Jim today, and I believe that a representative of the organization, and Michelle is here, you're getting up to speak. I'd love to hear more about this. Can you come up and
Good evening. The matter that's before you is a fundraiser put together by URI Kappa Sigma Fraternity. Again, it's going to be conducted on February 23rd with your approval. And Chuck is here to explain more details about what this event is about and exactly where the money is going to go.
Welcome. Just give your name and address, please.
Sure. Charles Dumas. I'm currently residing at 251 Narragansett Ave East. So I'm the president of this Kappa Sigma fraternity. We're on URI, and we want to do this polar plunge event similar to other polar plunges that have ran through this town and local areas. All proceeds would be donated to the Military Heroes Campaign. It's our national philanthropy. I myself am a cadet also in the Army ROTC program, so it does mean a little bit more to me. With this event, we would go through every regulation that is normally required and bring safety above and beyond as our #1 priority. We have named Narragansett already through our insurance as additionally insured for up to $1 million general liability for this state. We'll be having EMTs present and potentially a police detail. This will be a completely sober and non-alcoholic event, and it really would just be an in and out, hopefully fun, beneficial, but definitely a big and upscale event.
Thank you. No, thank you. It sounds very good. Thank you for the explanation.
I have
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, could you explain, Chuck, a little to us? You have to understand in a room full of people that have had both good and bad experiences with URI fraternities. Can you explain to me a little bit about the precautions that you'll be taking to make sure, you mentioned there's no alcohol at the beach, but was pre-gaming is I guess, a term for it. How are you going to make sure that they aren't drinking ahead of time and coming to the event having been intoxicated?
Sure. So the biggest and most blunt answer will be it's pretty early in the morning and on a Sunday.
We've seen it before, though.
Right.
You don't want to thin your blood, right?
People need the
No,
plunge. They might need the plunge.
And that's great. So when I was talking over with Steve, right, when I first proposed this idea, I was involved a little bit with the beach day that URI has had over the years. Last year had to be taken away because of how much it escalated. This year was successfully reinstated with a lot of effort to make that the case. This polar plunge event just really isn't similar at all to something like that. I guess the idea is that it's more fun. People are going, they're registering beforehand. It's almost treated like a 5K. In that sense, I've talked to my director of Greek life about this. He doesn't see that being an issue either. For the most part, we just have to trust that, but until, I guess until it gets into place and becomes a thing, that, to me, as an experienced leader in this community, just, I can't see that being an issue, honestly, that people would be pre-gaming for an event of this sort.
You have to understand that we've had several instances when it's Greek Week that they have breakfast early in the morning, and then where the police are out there early. Will there be anybody from the university, non-student, that will be at the event to help organize the event and be there on hand that day?
We can definitely have people. For the most part, us as Greek leaders do run events and can handle events and can discipline events. But like I said, Dr. Steve Simo, I've been talking to him. He's the Assistant Dean of Students at URI and the Director of Greek Life. He plans on attending. So.
And has your particular frat house, have you ever been cited by the university? Or are you on campus or off campus?
So we do not have a fraternity house. We have been in good standing ever since we started 5 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
I got a question for him. Do you now live or ever lived in a boarding house more than 4 bedrooms? I'll get to the bottom of this. Have fun.
Are there any more questions? You can sit down.
Jim also spoke with the charity today, and that we can.
Yes, I spoke to Mr. Dumas today, and he sent me all the material that I put on the council dais.
I asked Jim to vet it, thinking there might be some potential opposition in town, so I wanted to make sure the town manager had a really good feeling for the organization.
You did.
And all of the money is going to this organization. Nothing is going back to the university.
That's what they've assured us, and the letter details where it goes, and the checks are made out to the actual campaign. And their website shows where those funds go.
And as Michelle stated, they have all proper insurance.
Yes, ma'am, they do. And it wouldn't surprise me if the beach manager, Mr. William Eckert, if he also didn't swing by the event on that day, just to check on things and make sure that all of the policies and procedures that we need to have in place are being abided by.
Will you and Bill be jumping in that day?
For myself, sir, no. I cannot speak for Mr. Eckert, though.
I heard Steve Wright might.
There's always a possibility, ma'am.
Thank you.
All set.
Thank you.
All right.
Can we move the bike path up?
If people want to, I don't know. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 13 is a motion to approve the request from the Narragansett Little League for their annual opening day parade to be held on Saturday, May 2nd, 2020 at 10 a.m., subject to state and local regulations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. We're all familiar with the annual Little League parade. Any questions from the council? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0.
Councilman.
Wait, just let me get through this one and then you can. All right. Item 14 is a motion to adopt the amended resolution establishing the proposed wages for seasonal, part-time, and temporary employees for fiscal year 2019 to 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. This is for the wages for the all the employees at the beach. I was just going to see if the council had any interest in the lifeguard captain, assistant lifeguard captain, and veteran lifeguard high-end range going to $20, because those are people who are older lifeguards who are trying to retain. So if there's any interest in that, I would look for an amendment to increase that. But
I'd move that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, so this would increase the range on veteran lifeguard, assistant lifeguard captain, and lifeguard captain to $20. All right, all in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And then on the underlying motion for item number 14. Any comments? All right, thank you for all the work there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Okay, Patrick?
Yeah, can we move a request? We move 24 up front. 24.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed. Motion approved, 5-0. Item 24 is a motion to designate the Narragansett Community Center as the termination point of the South County Bike Path and instruct town staff to inform the Rhode Island Department of Transportation of this policy.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Matt, I'd like to make an amendment to this recommendation and to insert the word temporary stop termination at the bike path, and to instruct the town staff to respectfully request the money so we can continue on the pursuit of looking at the potential of actually connecting to the town beach.
All right, so we'll take those amendments separately. The first would be to put the word temporary in front of Narragansett Community Center, so we designate, Narragansett Community as a temporary termination point. So it'd be in front of termination point. All right, so is there a second for that amendment?
Second.
All right. All right, so discussion, so we're going to have the same kind of thing that we had on the first amendment. So basically on this, we had as people may remember, back in 2013, we had, I guess I'm the only person from the council that's still here from that time, where we asked for DOT to go through Canachet Farm and made our request to have the bike path go through Canachet Farm. This year, we received word from DOT that it was not entertaining, that it was not going to be entertaining those options, and they had a report from consultants in their project readiness review, and they said that the proposed pass through Canachet Farm can be achieved without some form of environmental permitting and relief, and that does not appear to be any justification for such relief, and that there was the wetlands loss associated with construction of the path through Canachet Farm would comprise 0.4 to 1.0 acres of wetlands. So we had a work session to look at what our options were at that point, because the big thing is that DOT is changing their focus from bike paths to roads and bridges, and informed us that there'd be a reduction from $8.3 million that was originally going to be used to go through Canachet Farm down to $3 million. So in light of that, we came together, we heard from some of the neighbors, and the neighbors, the option that was left available from the readiness report was essentially the one that's a modified version, was called Modified Version 4, that had on-road and off-road components. So the council back in 13 and continued in 19 to say that they didn't want this to go through those neighborhoods on Wanda and Othmar Street. So in that work session, we talked about this, and so have a temporary ending point at the community center, because if we ask for permitting of $3 million, it's very clear from the project readiness review that DOT put together that they want that. They want us, they're not going to do that for a purely Canachet Farm path. So my concern is, so basically I'm just reacting to that. That's why we had the work session. If people had said we want to go over those roads, then fine. You know, if in the work session that was the sentiment, then that would have been the route that we would have gone. So that was my rationale for this. So any other comments from the council?
We did. We heard clearly from the neighborhood that they did not want the bikes to come down those roads, and I think all five of us agreed that that should not happen. The one thing that I'd like to take a look at is moving it back, moving the bike path. I took the opportunity, Rick and I actually walked back to Canachet Farm on the path the other day, and there are some areas that we do believe we could look at. Rep. McAdie is here, and I'd like her to come up as well and speak to this, but she was, before she was a rep, when she was on the town council in South Kingstown, they worked very diligently to be able to do small groupings of the bike path to eventually get it to where it is today. And she has informed me that during that period of time, there were many areas that were wetland areas that South Kingstown was successful in building bridges over to be able to have the bike path continue. She had a discussion with DOT just last week as well, where she has some information, and she's here. I'd like to ask her to come on up and speak to us.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, members of the council. Carol Hagan McEntee, State Representative, District 33. I live in Wakefield and Narragansett these days. I did speak with Megan Dupreet, who is in charge of all the bike paths with DEM. The misconception here is that all the money is coming from DOT. It is not. $2 million is coming from DOT. $1 million, I think it's $1.2 million, it's a little over another $1 million, is coming from the Green Economy Bond. They have told me at DEM, passing this motion as stated on the agenda would be a detriment to the town of Narragansett. It would hurt any chance of a bike path in the future. The recommendation is, if you can't do the whole bike path because we don't have enough money, and I agree with you, it's unfortunate that the money got taken away, but it did. And if you're reading the papers these days, you know, they even need more money, so for roads and bridges. But I was at the ribbon cutting for the URI extension of the bike path, and Director Janet Coit of DEM made a promise that she would make all the efforts with Green Economy Bond and future Green Economy Bonds to eventually get the bike path all the way to Narragansett Beach and off the roads. So with that stated by her just recently, what was that, January, December? I believe that there will be money in the future. So let's not bite off our nose to spite our face here. I think you could put in what Megan DePreet suggested is, this is phase 4B. You could apply for, you could break that up into manageable sections. So they've done it in other towns. They can do 4B1, 4B2, 4B3, however it needs to be done, with the money that's appropriated. So I would suggest that to you guys and your staff that if you could come up with a plan, even if it's bring it partially, like wherever it was supposed to go before, behind the community center and down, where was it going to go? It was going to go all the way back in the woods. You could do some of that. You could do, like in South Kingstown, if you go over by Fagan Park, you'll see that there's a little, it directs you off so you can go play basketball at Fagan Park. So there's all these little turnoffs on the major bike path. You could do that here as well, have a turnoff into your park so that the kids could go to Little League or they could play in the playground. I just think to just end it and say, we're not going to take any of this money and maybe beautify that park to some degree, put up some bike racks. You're going to need a kiosk. You're going to have to tell people where to go. And we've, like in South Kingstown, all the years that we did the different phases, we had a kiosk at every, there's one at the train station, there's one in Wakefield when you hit Main Street, then there's another one when you hit 108, it used to be Rody Joe's, now it's something else, that goes across to MacArthur Boulevard. And by the way, I do want to mention that I represent MacArthur Boulevard, that whole area. Not one complaint have I ever had about bicyclists on that road. And that's a full-fledged community. It seems to work well. But I totally understand how you don't want it to go, you know, people funneling it down certain roads. But I would suggest that you apply for some kind of 4B phase 1 and do something with, and keep the vision alive for the bike path that you eventually want to go all the way to the beach. And I know you all got an email from Tim O'Neill, who it's his father's legacy, this bike path. And, you know, the idea way back when was you get off the train in Kingston and you could literally go all the way to Narragansett Beach and stop at restaurants and places all along the way. And I just, the community center, like, boom, I don't know. I think you've got to be more forward-thinking. Bike paths, walking spaces are the wave of the future. People, just look around here. I mean, this town proves that 100%. We had a nice weekend, a weekend ago, and all these walking paths were loaded with people. The beach was loaded with people. So I think the bike path is still a great idea. I understand the lack of money, but we have to keep thinking forward. And I think we have a commitment from DEM, which I will continue to work on. And if you pass this motion as written, without the amendment, even with the amendment, I mean, it's still, I think you could do a little more with it if you'd revisit. But it'll make my job much harder to get the money if it's available in the future, and I'm still in the seat to say, why should we give it to Narragansett? They don't want it. You know, it just flies in the face. So I urge you to keep the dream alive. It is a jewel of South County, this bike path, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Durkin.
Do you want to hear from the council?
You know
first?
what? We're going to talk to the council first. I'm sorry. Yes. Anyone from the council?
So,
go ahead.
I don't disagree with the fact that as South Kingston has put in these fingers and their branches off the bike path that they have, that I'd be in favor of, from the community center up to the Little League parking lot, to be able to get that area tarred, so that, again, it would be a fingered destination so that people could go to the park and go to Little League field. I do not want to see it going to behind the Indian and then funneling down the two streets that people from those neighborhoods spoke clearly that that's not what they want. We could also do a phase, as Carol mentioned, that would be phased into Canachet Farm, which is the trail behind the community center. That phase there, whatever money that we have and however far that they choose to go with what we have, could phase into the Canachet Farm area. If it phases in there and in the future they get more money and they can continue from there, I think maybe at some point, I don't know how long it's going to take, but we could keep continuing it that way, and that way there we're not affecting the neighborhoods, it's not on the street. And I believe that the original plans that were out there, you'll see a powdered blue path line that kind of takes it over that railroad bed that's in there. Now, when you get into the wetlands and those areas, there's a lot of runoff. It does take eat up a lot of the money, design, engineering, and the state agencies working back and forth to put something together. But if we're willing to do that, then I'm fine with amending this motion so that we can look at that avenue.
Anyone else from the council?
Sure. I'm in agreement with Jill and Ricky, at least the second part of Ricky's statement about going through Canachet. I appreciate the comments from Rep. McEntee. I've actually heard similar comments from Rep. Tansey as well. So it seems like, you know, our reps who speak to people at DEM and speak to people at Department of Transportation are definitely more optimistic than maybe what's being portrayed from that bike workshop. So I think there's a real potential to do this the right way and the full path eventually. I would actually like to, I don't know how the process works, but I think we could have a more aggressive amendment than to say temporary terminus, because it's not really going to be a terminus at all. I would propose to amend it to say request funding from the state to complete phase 4A and
continuing saga
and begin phase 4B, which says, you know, basically gets the point across that these are phases that we're working through. And we have the letter actually from that Jim drafted that does just that. That basically says we like to finish what we have, and then, if possible, use the money for design, planning, and permitting for, I think, phase or plan. What is it? Path 3A, 3A or 3B? Yeah. So that's the somewhat more realistic plan to go through the woods. So that would be my suggestion for an amendment, as opposed to just stopping even temporarily at the community center, because I don't think we had to make any sort of declaration about a terminus after the last phase. So I don't know why there'd be a reason to have to say that publicly now.
You good?
Yeah, I agree. We got $3 million. We should hang on to it. We should keep this nightmare alive. I mean, this dream alive. Keep it alive. It's only been 20 years and half the town fortune, but it's state money, so we need to hang on to it. And I agree with Rick. We should improve from the community center to Kingstown Road at least. That's got to be worth $3 million. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone from the public? Oh, Mr. Durkin, and then the man in the front row, yeah.
So, James Durkin, 375 Ocean Road. Thanks, Jill, for doing that. That was very nice to get that started. I've worked on the bike path since, I don't know, maybe 20 years, and it has been a little bit of a nightmare, but it really has been a rewarding nightmare, and I think it would be a travesty to see this last pot just kind of put off. So it seems like you guys you understand that, and that's great. The other thing also is DEM is rewriting their regulations. So I'm not sure if anybody knows if they would affect us in a negative way, but I'm sure if we have the state legislative people on our side, that somehow they could maybe grandfather that fourth phase into the old regulations, you know, because I think those regulations have to pass the General Assembly. Maybe for this last push, a group needs to be, you know, started to do some work to fundraise and do the right things to get this thing done, because it's definitely possible, and it would just be like such a, you know, a bright light at the end of the tunnel or the end of the path, you know? So, thanks. I bet you guys thought I was here for the last one.
No.
No?
But just, Jimmy, while you're here, but you were involved originally, and Mike DeLuca, I chatted with you about this. Just so people know, when they started this bike path, a lot of work went into this. And I think right off the bat, they knew that it was going to be tough to get the destination to the beach because the way it was set up. And they knew they had to make some land swaps, which was done. We swapped town land with Fish and Wildlife. There was a lot that went on there. So, again, there's state agencies that work with state agencies to try to put this all together. And I've said it before. This isn't something where you hire a contractor, tell them to get a bulldozer, go in there, and pay them by the hour to do this. There's a lot of time and a lot of cost to this. So, again, we're just not going to piece something together that we're going to say, well, temporarily this is good enough. We want to do this right. And it may take another 5, 10, or 15 years. It may. I hope not. But I'd like to see it go off, maybe branch through that Conotchet Farm area, if possible, and continue. And if we can fundraise, that would be fantastic.
Has an environmental impact statement been done? I lost track of the bike path. Has that ever been done for this Section 4? No, I think that's something that needs to be done. So if you use the money for that, that takes in that whole environmental, you know, the pros and the cons and all that stuff. And that's what we've always needed for that fourth.
That was one of the things we discussed at the workshop, using it for environmental studies. So yes, agree with you.
So good. Thanks.
Hello, my
Hello.
name is Fritz Lanz, and I'm a teacher at the Pierce School, and I'm here to introduce Jonathan Hamby, who's also here with his sister, Rebecca, and together they wrote a little something, and I just want to thank you guys for this consideration. I think removing the word termination is a good thing, and before Jonathan begins, one of my favorite things that happens at school is from time to time I get a knock on my window, and Jonathan and his sister are there, and they're like, "Are you ready?" And they have their bike helmets on. I'm like, "Give me 5 minutes," and I get my stuff on, and we ride off. I ride to Wakefield. They ride to their house, but eventually it ends. We end up on the bike path. So, just anything we can do to continue it would be great.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Hamby, and I'm a 7th grader at the Pierre Middle School. I think we should extend the bike path to Narragansett Town Beach. It would be beneficial to the public and also the kids. It gives them a safe environment to ride to the beach. I've been in the summer. I've seen cars near the Narragansett Beach that go through the red lights sometimes, and they also speed down the roads. So the bike path would make it helpful and safer for the kids to get to the beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Dave Rudy, 125 Caswell. I agree with Rep. McEntee that we should not give up on this. I don't know if it'll take 15 years. I'd like to see it take less than that. I think it's one of the biggest assets in this part of Rhode Island, that the bike path goes all the way up to the train station. It's an incredible asset, and I really think we need to extend it to the beach. And I would urge the town council to table this motion, rework it, get it correct before you come and vote on it in this form that it's in now. Bring it back next time and do the right thing. Regarding that, and I'm sorry I missed the meeting at the workshop, I really am not understanding why the neighborhood thinks that it's safer to send kids on bicycles down Narragansett Avenue in the summer with the commercial parking on both sides, with resident beach parking on both sides, how that is any safer than going through the neighborhoods of Wanda and Strathmore. It makes no sense to me at all. Privacy, I understand. That's what this is about, not in my backyard. I think it's an abomination to cater to 20 houses along a street and force families with kids to ride on Narragansett Avenue in the busy summer traffic with no bike lane on either side of the road, other than that's taken up by parking for commercial and beach and residential use.
Thank you. Yes.
Arlene McAleer, Wanda Street. I think there's some confusion about what the neighbors want and don't want. We have bikes on our street all the time. What the neighbors were objecting to was how it was going to change our neighborhood. They were going to make Wanda Street a one-way street towards the beach. The proposal was to make Othmar Street a one-way street away from the beach. It was going to widen our road almost double from what it is now. There were questions where the neighborhood would be able to park on their streets the way they were going to put the bike lane down. There were a buffer on one side, a bike path on the other side, so it would completely change what our streets are now. It's not that we don't want people coming down our street. We don't want our streets to change the way they were proposed. Thank you.
Karen.
Karen Chapshowitz, Wanda Street. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the presence, I hate to say it, of idiots, because we've spent so much time on committees discussing all the alternatives, and I feel like trying to wear us down by not even listening to the people. I've lived on that street for 22 years. I have 6 children, and that whole neighborhood has changed drastically. And we've sat on committees ad nauseum, done testimony ad nauseum, and it's just getting more and more crowded. And this fantasy that just putting the bike path down the street is going to make it safer is dead wrong. They speed down the street. It's very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. There's never been a traffic study. And it's just, people have this, like we want to put a feather in our cap by saying you can get down to the beach. Well, then take it through Canachet Farms, which all the neighbors wanted it anyway, because the kids used to play in Canachet Farms. Now it's like that heart of Narragansett. You're not even using it for recreation. It's sort of like, why can't you just bring it down there, do the work that's required to make little wooden bridges or whatever over the water? It seems like when you want it, you do it, such as the house that's on Wanda Street, where they have this huge, huge water pond, and they let them build the house right at the edge. And if you want it, you manage to do it. It's just like when Canachet Farms was built. They have this huge pond that used to be water runoff. There used to be streams through there, but suddenly there was some shenanigans going on, and we have this huge development there now. I can't understand why you don't want it through Canachet Farms, which we originally, it was supposed to be there right from the beginning, and you could still get it down in Hoxie Lane to the beach. And there's parking issues and all other kinds of issues. So it's ridiculous that you keep going back to square one when you don't get the answer you want, and it's not getting any better or any safer. It's disgusting. Disgusting.
Just to clarify, I think the council's talking about doing exactly that.
Excuse me. Wait, Karen. Yeah, okay. Richard and then David.
I just want to say one quick thing. Wherever this thing terminates, I know where my ashes are going. All right?
Yeah, just a correction
Memorial
from a longtime
ashes right
board
at
member
the
for
end.
Friends of Canachet Farm. I resent Karen's remarks. Canachet Farm has come a long way in the 13 years that the Friends of Canachet Farm have worked there. And there is much to do there, and I don't know where Karen's come from. Maybe she could take a walk around the paths we have there, look at the historical sites and see other things, but please do not condemn what the good things have been going on at Canachet Farm.
Yes.
I'm David Smith at 24 Castle Road in Narragansett. The current state transportation improvement plan enables the town of Narragansett to manage completion of the William C. O'Neill bike path to Narragansett Town Beach and provides up to $3 million in reimbursement to design and construction of the final segment. In the coming months, the Rhode Island Division of Planning and the Rhode Island Department of Transportation will undertake a wholesale revision of that state transportation improvement program. If motion 24 passes as written, if it is approved, the planners will conclude first, the $3 million can be swept away and used on another bikeway, paving, or more likely, bridge project. RIDOT will be more than happy to move the money elsewhere. Secondly, the town of Narragansett will be seen as not interested in managing the bike path completion. The town's input is that it's already completed. And by the way, the town probably not interested in any other improvements for bicycle safety. What they will not conclude is that the path is actually finished, even though the town of Narragansett says it's over. It is South County bike path, by the way, and not the Narragansett bike path. Certainly, the public will know that it's not finished. The prudent course of action is to vote the motion down, period. Stay in communication with RIDOT. Present the objections to the proposed alternative route. Press for permitting of the path through Canachet Farm. Demand that the first use of the $3 million be a comprehensive traffic safety analysis of Central Narragansett. But whatever you do, don't throw in the towel. Don't pass this motion. If you terminate the bike path at the community center, the existing bike route, marked bike route now, goes down Mumford Road, Kingstown Road at the intersection with Lakewood Drive by the tennis courts, down Kingstown Road onto Narragansett Avenue, which has parking on both sides of the street, down to Boston Neck Road. That is not a safe path. The intersection of Mumford Road and Kingstown Road is unsafe for most motorists. It's chaotic, and you don't want bicyclists being directed out that way. You also have a new path built by the community, by the Pier Middle School and the high school, and also connecting to the end of Central Street. And that connects down Prospect Avenue to the Little League field. Connect that to the end of the bike path, at least.
Right.
You don't want two unfinished bike paths in the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rosemary Smith, 24 Castle Road. Members of the Town Council, I'm concerned that there is a misunderstanding. The new sign at the end of the South County Bike Path Project 4A says dismount bikes, not abandon the completion of the South County Bike Path at the Narragansett Community Center. This is not the end of the bike path. It is the beginning of Phase 4B, which completes the bike path to the South Pavilion of Narragansett Town Beach, which has been the goal of the bike path since the 1980s. In 2016, when David Smith and I worked with the town to seek the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management Green Economy Bond of $750,000 for Phase 4A, which went from the current terminus of the bike path on Mumford Road, around the rear of the school playground and the play field to the community center. We considered that 1/4 mile to be a connector. Phase 4A took the pedestrian and bicycle traffic off Mumford Road in front of the school and connected it to the parking lot at the community center. Safety and parking were the two goals. We asked the town manager, the director of Parks and Recreation, the police chief, the director of Public Works, and the superintendent of schools if this section was a good idea. They all agreed. In 2016, it was the next step to the completion of the bike path to the beach. Now it's time to plan the last 3/4 mile of the South County Bike Path. The funding has been reduced to $3 million. The $3 million reimbursement should not be returned to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation with the inscription on the card saying, "You can use this money somewhere else in the state. Narragansett doesn't want it." Instead, a letter needs to be sent to RIDOT saying this amount and more is needed. The plan that RIDOT offered to take the bike path through Wanda Street is not considered safe by the residents, and we need help finding another safe way for pedestrians and bicyclists to get from the community center to the beach. The Narragansett response to RIDOT should also say that the town would like to spend a certain portion of that $3 million to hire a traffic safety engineer to help in this process. The safety of thousands of people who bike or walk this path is at stake. 30,000 annual trips at Mumford Road, as determined by the Rhode Island Department of Planning in 2017. And that was before the URI connector and Phase 4A behind the elementary school were completed. When the residents of Schoolhouse Road objected to the South County Bike Path coming down their street for safety reasons, another path through the land that had been swapped with the town was arranged. People kept talking and a solution was worked out. The Narragansett Town staff and the Narragansett Town Council need to send a letter to DOT saying they accept the $3 million reimbursement, and you need to work in negotiation to find a solution that is acceptable to the residents that completes the South County Bike Path to the Narragansett Down Beach, where the final sign could read, "Your journey is finished. Dismount your bikes here." Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, and then Susan, and then the gentleman.
Susan Amoruso, West Bay Drive. I support keeping the funds here in town, working on a solution to getting this bike path. And it was a good reminder that this is not just a Narragansett bike path, it is a South County bike path. And to turn away funds that are state taxes, we contribute to this fund. Granted, we would have liked the whole amount, but we should not be returning $3 million, especially when we have our legislators and representatives working with us. So I think treating it as phases to use this money, there's always a way to word it. So I support keeping the funds and completing this bike path.
Hello, Council. Matt Bozzioni. I own Narragansett Bikes up on the north end. And so, yeah, I just, being in the industry and watching the process of this it's more, it's less of a nightmare than an embarrassment to watch how difficult the process has been. And I know there's been a lot of effort going into it for years, but opening the store, purchasing the store in 2007, it was a conversation that we were talking to customers about at that point, and it still draws this really gap for a lot of people to just get, even from this side, to get to Wakefield or to get to the Kingston station. It is such a gem, and it's an incredible asset for the town, and I think it's a really important piece to continue the pursuit. Canachet Farms is the ideal spot, and when you go through there, we spend a lot of time back there, whether it's on a hiking, things with the kids and stuff like that. It really is an ideal, amazing way to get to the town beach. And we have so many customers, and the town has obviously become very much a tourist place in the summertime. And they always ask us how to get to the bike path. And it is the most challenging process to get people from where we are. And I recognize 1A has its bike route and everything. But even if they were willing to drive down, it's you got to take them away from the town beach. You have to take them away from the ocean to just get to the bike path. Because from a family standpoint, think of it going the other direction. I mean, there's no place to go from the 1A to get to Mumford, and so it's a vital piece to the community, and I think it's been an incredible asset. And it's just this kind of odd, embarrassing end to it at Mumford. So I appreciate the consideration of changing the amendments and not making it a termination at the center. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, so this amendment is putting, Teresa.
Less than a minute. Teresa Tansey, the other state rep for Narragansett. You guys have heard me speak on this dozens of times, so I'm not going to go into the detail that I usually do, simply saying that this must go to the beach. Rosemary and David both stated it beautifully. It's not the end, it's the beginning. It's meant to go to the beach from the beginning. And it's imperative that it does. We need to keep that money to explore an off-road design. I think we hear that loud and clear over and over again. We need to use that money for the environmental feasibility study through Canachet Farm, down Hoxie Lane, and it may be for B, it may be for C, it may be for D. It may take us 15 years, but that's not of importance. It's a process, and it will take as long as it takes, and we need to do this right. This is a legacy item. This is the South County Bike Path, and it matters not just to those of us who are in elected office now, who are residents of Narragansett now. This is a legacy for the entirety of the state. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, so the first amendment was adding the word temporary in front of termination point.
I just wanted to ask Mark, what do you recommend for do? It looks like we have at least 4 people that want to change it and add additional verbiage. What's the best course? Can I?
Community center as a termination or temporary termination. Community center at the beginning of phase 4 of the South County.
I just want to say one quick thing. So I have this item prepared and ready to go. It was submitted to be on this agenda, and that was to approve town manager's letter. which was to request the $3 million from the state and to use that money for permitting. Everything we're talking about tonight, we all saw that draft. I mean, Terry has the letter in her email. We can put it on in 2 weeks. It has the letter attached. Everyone can see it beforehand. Why don't we just vote it down and then just put it on in 2 weeks?
Right, so you guys can go ahead and vote down the motion and then put on the Jesse's item in 2 weeks. That probably makes the most sense if that's the way people want to go.
I was going to ask Mark if we could do that tonight. We have Jim's draft letter that I think that...
Well, that needs to be fixed, Jill. There's still problems with that letter.
I understand, but I wanted to find out from our solicitor what he thinks we should do.
I think the prudent thing to do would be to step back, take a look at the letter, revise it, and come back in a couple of weeks and do it right.
Okay.
All right, so then if you want to withdraw your amendments then, your first amendment?
Yes, I'll withdraw those.
And withdraw the second?
And the second.
All right, so and then we go to the underlying, back to just the underlying motion. So as I said, this started back in 2013. I have a letter here from Dean Hoxie. It talks about the options that we looked at in 2013. It talks about the on-road portions through the neighborhood. It talks about the Tansy path, and it talks about the Brady path. Many of you may not know what all that is in the room, but that was the discussion point. The council at the time said they wanted to go with the Tansy path, right? That's what the town has advocated for as the green energy bond has gone on. The Canachet farm path, so it didn't intrude on the people in the neighborhoods, right? In the middle of this year, we received word from DOT, right? We had advocated, and they basically said, they didn't express reluctance, they rejected, right? They rejected the option of going that way. They reduced significantly the amount, more than half the amount they put into, they cut it by more than half, and said to us that alternatives 1, 2, this actually was from their consultant report, their readiness report. Alternatives 1, 2, 3, 3A, 4, and 5 do not satisfy the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer criteria nor the CRMC variance requirements. All those versions are all the Canachet Farm versions. What they said about the $3 million was VHB, which is the consultant, recommends the proponent and RIDOT explore developing a modified version of Alternative 4. Right, we're talking about that tonight, now called Modified Alternative 4. This version moves the path a minor distance to the east near the community center to create a bike path with on-road and off-road components. Modified Alternative 4 could utilize a former railroad embankment north of the community center to reach Sprague Memorial Field, then passing through the field to Strathmore Road, crossing Strathmore Road and proceeding east along Wanda Street and/or Othmar Street as on-road bicycle lanes or shared use paths to the town pumping station property. Also, new sidewalk could be installed along one side of Wanda Street and/or Othmar Street for pedestrian users. So what they've said to us is the permitting money, the $3 million, they aren't going to use that purely for a Canachet farm only path. So I was just trying to be practical here. It's been 6 years, and I said a temporary terminus would be at this point based on what I had read, what they communicated to us. And what we're doing now is we're basically just sending the 2013 letter again. So, all right, so all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
Motion fails 1 to 4. Item number 15, a motion to review and discuss the hazard mitigation plan yearly progress report and to receive and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. I'm going to ask Ms. Sabo to come forward. Where are you? So Jill's going to provide us with an overview of this.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Wait, let's give 2 minutes. All right, if everybody who is, if you're going to leave, if you could depart, please. Teresa. All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. President, members of Town Council. I'm Jill Sabo with the Planning Department. I'm presenting to you tonight the 2019 progress report for the town's hazard mitigation plan. As you may recall, in January of 2019, the council approved the town's hazard mitigation plan, which is officially referred to as the strategy for reducing risks from natural hazards in Narragansett, Rhode Island. The plan was drafted through the local hazard mitigation committee, which is comprised of town department heads, the town manager, police chief, fire chief, DPW director and deputy director, the planning director, engineer, IT, building inspections, and REMA reps. It was also crafted through public participation, including a survey, a public workshop, as well as opportunities to speak at the planning board. And it was advertised through media, our website, the local newspapers, and social media. In the plan, 19 action items were identified to be addressed over the next 5 years. This is the first progress report on those 5 years, and of those 19 action items, the town actually has several updates. I just would like to run through them briefly. I know they're in your report, but for the benefit of everyone here. Action item number 5. I won't go through, by the way, I won't go through all 19. I'm only going to go through the ones with updates. So action item number 5 is the flood-proofing pump stations. So the town engineering department has applied for funding through FEMA to reinforce and secure the storm manhole covers in the Scarborough wastewater treatment facility in the event of a severe coastal storm. That funding, actually the deadline for it is January of this year, and we should know by June, and hopefully by December there'll be an award. That information will apply a few times here. Action item 7, which is the Scarborough wastewater groin rehabilitation. You may recall in 2019, we thought we were going to be able to get funding through FEMA for that. Well, we found out that the rehab of the jetty didn't qualify for the hazard mitigation funding. The engineering department is actually currently preparing an application for the green economy bond, and that'll be submitted later this month. Action item 8, which is the underground utilities and fire alarm communications upgrade. The town's fire alarm cable and equipment system is currently undergoing a conversion to wireless radio signaling. This is a 5-year CIP project, which started in September of 2019, so subsequent phases will occur over the next 5 years. Action item 11, causeways. A local community group, the Harbor Island Improvement Association, privately contracted to install tidal gauges in Long Cove, Champlain Cove, and at the Port of Galilee to understand the tidal changes in those two coves, Long and Champlain. The town, through the planning department, has applied for FEMA grant funding for a concept study to identify alternatives for improving the causeway to Harbor Island, and it has incorporated this study in its application. And action item 19, stormwater projects. The Department of Public Works has applied for FEMA funds to rebuild the culvert at Springbrook in Bonnet Shores, and they have also applied for funding through RIDEM to install stormwater BMPs on Indian Trail next to Narrow River. The town is required to complete this yearly progress report and present it to the Planning Board and the Town Council. On January 7th of this year, the Planning Board unanimously accepted this report and recommended that the Town Council review, accept, and place on file. I'm available for questions.
So tonight is a discussion, and then I guess the next meeting we would actually accept it and place on file. Is that correct? Because this is review and discuss.
It says review and discuss. It does not say place on file.
Yeah, that's fine. We can, 2 weeks, we can just say place on file if we have the discussion here. So, yeah.
Would it be
Is that too
possible
late?
to amend it to place on file? Because
Is
our
it too late?
deadline is actually February 1st. I believe it says both. I don't
Oh,
have
it
it in
does.
front
I'm
of
sorry.
me.
Okay, usually it says
Yeah.
receive and place on file in
Yeah.
the beginning. Okay, no, so we're fine. Yep, good. Sorry about that. All right, any comments or questions from the council?
I move we receive.
We've already done that. We've already
Okay.
made the motion.
I
All
move
right,
we place it on file.
anybody from the public?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 16 is a motion to read, pass, and adopt as a second reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions at Section 4.7, Special Flood Hazard Overlay District.
So moved.
Second.
This is a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. We're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, everybody, and then we'll come back for item 17. All right, thanks. Did you want a break? You look like you had to go to the...
No, I'm good. No, I'm good.
Got his badge on it.
doing?
I think so. It's very difficult not to. We all know. And it's just not. Am I going to be able to take you out to lunch?
Yeah, we are. You don't have to take me to lunch. We'll argue it. We'll talk about it. But don't forget, hey, I got 50 people I take care of. I know.
So I'll tell you this. This could be another 3 or 4 million. So the guy upstairs going to say, "Fucking Stanley and Annie, you did it. You there's more work.
Is that right? We get to stay longer, huh? I don't know. We'll do that. I'll give you a buzz. At least we'll talk about this thing again. Because we got to keep on, we got to keep it alive. We got to keep it alive. I want to show you. I want to show you. I want to show you. We can't let them. I know. That's a team. That's a wrong thing. It's a wrong thing to do. All I'm trying to do is not be a jerk about it, you know? You know, my kids are, you're a stupid old man jerk, you are. I know.
And if you were foolish, it'd be even worse. Right?
5 minutes are off. Let's go.
I used to throw the buttons back on my dog shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
All in favor? Aye.
All
Second.
right, if everyone can return to their seats, please.
Second.
It's only like 3 items left. What? It's like 3 items left. 5 items.
All right, item 17 is a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the net metering credit sales agreement with Founders Homestead Farm Solar LLC and the established certificates for Founders Homestead Farm Solar LLC and University Solar LLC.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any comments from the council? All right, comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. 18 is a motion to approve the restoration work at Kinney Ave Water Division Office to be completed by Abcor Restoration Company Incorporated, the amount of $34,893.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All right, anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Item 19 is a motion to approve the filling of the position of heavy equipment operator and any subsequent vacancies due to a resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. This is a resignation in the Public Works Department. Any comments from the council? Public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Item 20 is a motion to appoint 2 individuals to the Juvenile Hearing Board with one 2-year term ending 11/1/2021 and one 3-year term ending 11/1/2022.
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there a specific
I make
person for
a-
the 2-year term?
Yeah, Tony Jones.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Is there an appointment for the 3-year term?
Sure.
Erica. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, I'm sorry.
All right, is there a second for that?
I'll vote for Erica. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
All
Yes.
right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Discussion? Anyone?
Yeah.
Yes, come forward.
Not sure on the proper principle.
Oh, yes, I was going to put forth my strongest recommendation was for Kathy Gardner, who sits on the Narragansett Prevention Partnership Board with me and for the police department. And she also manages a grant that we use for underage enforcement. She's done a lot of work with the police department. I think she would be a great fit. I just wanted to get that out there to you.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you. All right, any further discussion?
Is this the second one? Is you
So
nominated?
this is Erica. What's Erica's last name, Terry? Could you?
Pistorino?
Pastorino.
Pistorino?
Pastorino.
I'd like to also put Kathy Gardner's name.
Right, Pastorino.
I'd like to also move Kathy Gardner.
We already have one.
Right, so Eric is up, so we can vote on that
Okay.
or discuss it if people have further discussion.
Well, if it's the chief's recommendation, I think we should go with it.
All right, so we have Erica Pastorino. All in favor of that?
No.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion approved, 4-1. All right, did you want to make another nomination?
Well, that's it.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Number 21 is a motion to approve the 1-year contract extension for wastewater laboratory analysis with Premier Laboratory Division of Microbac Labs Incorporated at their quoted bid prices and rates under the same terms and conditions as the original contract.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Just wait 1 second, please. All right. Item number 22 is a motion to award the bid for tax sale title search to the lowest bidder, Taft & McSally LLP, at their quoted bid prices, $89 per title exam, $100 per collector's deed, and $8 per postage notice for the 2020 tax sale.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Any comments from the council? All right, from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. So we had moved up items 23 and 24, so that gets us to open forum portion of the meeting. This is where people can comment on issues regarding what's going on in the community. We ask that people keep their comments to the 3-minute time period.
Matt, many people asked me if I could have Mark give a summary of what occurred at the hearing for the lawsuits from the library last Friday. So, Mark, if you could do that, and then if you could also maybe outline what's going to be happening on this topic over the next couple of weeks.
This past Friday, excuse me, this past Friday, we were in court on the 2 lawsuits, one brought by Love Your Library et al. Versus the town council, and the other one, Gilbane versus the town. If you recall, shortly after the lawsuits were filed, a temporary restraining order was filed, and in lieu of that hearing, we agreed to enter into a consent agreement not to transfer title until there was some resolution by agreement or by the court. On Friday, the town council and the town's motion to dismiss both those lawsuits were heard, and the court ruled on the Love Your Library et al. In favor of the plaintiffs, and our motion failed. The court has taken the motion to dismiss the Gilbane matter under advisement and has not issued a ruling on that. So next steps are this Friday at 8:45, I suspect it'll be in chambers, but there's a status conference for the lawyers to discuss the timing of when the consent agreement, a final decision can be made on that. We're asking to be relieved from those obligations and be allowed to transfer title. So there'll be a hearing on that. And so that status conference will lay out the next steps, whether there's going to be discovery or what the timetable is going to be. That happens Friday. A week from today, the town will be in court on the Susan Cicilline-Bonanno lawsuit, in which the town failed to recognize the petition as being valid. You remember that petition being one that wanted to undo basically the offering of sale via petition. That lawsuit will be heard a week from today. So we'll be arguing that suit. I think that brings us to date.
Thank you. So the judge didn't make any rulings, he just really kind of proverbially kicked the can down the road?
Yeah, I mean, the motion to dismiss, we argued standing, and we argued that it should be basically dismissed. It's a tough burden, and we lost that. So the next hearing at some point will be on whether we'll be free to transfer that, and then however that's decided, eventually there'll be a full-blown trial on the matter. So that's kind of the next steps.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to address the council? Rosemary, and then Stan.
Rosemary Smith, 24 Castle Road. I wanted to invite you and to the members of the community and to anyone in the state of Rhode Island to the Winter Speaker Series on Pettaquamsket, presentations on the environment and the history of the Narrow River watershed. And they take place during the winter months on the last Sunday of January, February, and March. They take place from 1 to 3 o'clock at the Narragansett Town Library. And this is our 9th year in having these presentations. This year, the first one will be on January 26th, and it's 50 years of protecting and preserving the Narrow River and its watershed, and it will be done with a panel of the NRPA board, and they will talk about their challenges, and they will talk about their future. At that one, we ask people to pre-register before they come to the library for those meetings, and that one was registered in full as of 2 weeks ago. So I'm sorry, I have to say, unless you're on that list or on a waiting list, there's no more space at the library. The second one is February 23rd, and it's called The Rhode Island Bear Story from Colonial Persecution, not prosecution, I'm sorry, to Backyard Pest. And it's going to be given by the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management wildlife specialist, Mary Gannon. And she's going to talk about issues of wildlife in the watershed, and she will talk about the bear incident that took place at Camp Farnham. The third one is called March 29th, and it's Camp Farnham and the Rhode Island Coastal Defenses. And it will be given by Master Sergeant James Loeffler, who's recently retired from the National Guard. And he'll explain how Camp Farnham, near the mouth of Narrow River, played an important role in the defense of the Rhode Island coast during World War II. These presentations are presented in collaboration with the South County Museum, the Friends of Canachet Farm, the Narrow River Preservation Association, and the Narragansett Library, and with funding from Trio Restaurant. So I have the flyers. I'd like to have the clerk please pass them to you. And except for the first one, we'd love to see you. Okay?
Thank you.
Rosemary, you might want to talk to Parks and Rec and use the community center if you have an overflow, if you have so many people that have, rather than limiting it, there's certainly lots of space.
Well, it's Sunday afternoon, 1 to 3. I have not seen the Parks and Recs open during that time, and this is free to us.
No, they could be open. They could be open there as well.
And free?
Check it out with Steve, yep.
Well, I think we're set where we are for this year, but thank you for the suggestion. I appreciate it.
I had said Stanley.
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett. I just want to relieve some frustration I have. I read the letters to the editor, and all I hear is this organization, OLIS, is withholding $181,000 because we have a funding problem. Narragansett has a funding problem. You know, I heard that we gave them they had a $681,000 surplus. Then I hear Councilman Lino said that the last 5 years they've had these thousands of dollars of surplus money, and then this organization says we have a funding problem. You know, obviously that criteria is really messed up to say you have a funding problem. We overfunded the library unbelievably, and now they say we have a funding problem. When I see that, I just lose confidence in any professional analysis or ability to carry on any analysis concerning money. It really is upsetting, and I read this often, hear about it often, and I get upset. Therefore, I had to come up here and let you know I'm upset when I see that. I lose confidence that we're dealing with some non-professional people out there. Thank you.
Thank you. You, that, and then Sue. You and then Sue. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Petroselli, Narragansett. I'm here as Ted DiStefano is not able to be here tonight. I've agreed to read his letter that was published in the Narragansett Times on January 15th.
It's about the dozenth one, right? Go ahead.
Me? First, let me explain the background of the $181,959. The state of Rhode Island gives grants to libraries throughout the state if cities and towns simply keep on giving the libraries the same budgetary amount that they did the year before. In other words, the state clearly doesn't want libraries to be underfunded. The state wants them to be level funded, meaning that the level of the funding in the present year must be the same as the year before. Narragansett has done this for years for our wonderful library. It was a simple, fail-proof process until the anti-library trio, led by Council President Matthew Mannix and assisted by Councilors Rick Lima and Jill Lawler, decided to slash the library budget to the point of threatening the future of our library. Just view the Narragansett Town Council meeting of January 6, 2020 on YouTube, and you will hear the Narragansett resident, Miss Carlene Town, say this to the trio, things like this: how are you going to ensure that the library will be able to remain open? She also asked how this anti-library trio led by Mannix plans to correct the terrible disservice that they have done to our library. I don't recall hearing a response from Mannix or his cohorts on this. On YouTube, you will also hear our town manager, James Tierney, say that he did not appeal the loss of the $181,959 in the state funds because he thought it would be a futile exercise. Very sad indeed. Now the town is out $181,959 in state funding, and its future ability to regain the trust of the state of Rhode Island and obtain future state funding is quite dubious, especially with the council we have in place led by Mannix. To further compound this disaster, after resident Ms. Carlene Town took the preparers of the town budget to task for lying to the taxpayers and the state by putting $181,959 in our town budget as income, knowing full well that it was no longer available to us, Mannix laughed softly and answered, "No one lied in the budget. The budget is a plan." And I'm going to pass this on.
I recognize Sue Bush. You're not recognized. Sue Bush, please. You're not recognized. Thank you. I said Sue Bush. Thank you.
Before we get any further on this, one thing I'm not going to allow is people to mislead anybody on what's going on. So I'm going to answer Mr. DeStefano's view of level funding as misleading and non-factual. On 10/11/19, the town was notified by OLIS that if the library board authorized the transfer of $414,000 from their surplus money, taxpayer money, to the town account, the town would turn around, appropriate the $414,000 back to the library, and this would satisfy OLIS requirements of level funding, and the library would get its $181,000 in state aid. Let's make that clear throughout the town. This council did not deny the funds to the people of this town. Library board had your opportunity and you didn't follow through.
All right, Sue, go ahead.
Hi, Sue Bush, 65 Robinson Street. Little pivot here, topic pivot. I had listened to some public comments from last town council meeting, and I just felt that I needed to respond to them. One was some commentary about public race events, particularly those run by professional organizations. And I would just like to say that I am the secretary of the Narragansett Historical Society and have been for many years, and we work with Gray Matter Marketing on the Ocean Road 10K. That is a fantastic award-winning race held in October, and it brings in participants from New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, the whole region. They come for the whole weekend, they spend the night or two, and they use our restaurants, and they have a great time. I would venture to say that if we were running that race year after year, it maybe would have lasted 2 years. But Gray Matter Marketing is a professional group. They know what they're doing. They've got the capabilities, the professional staff to keep this race going and make it a real robust, exciting event. So I would just like to sort of stand up for those professional organizations, particularly Gray Matter Marketing. They've been a fantastic partner of ours. We completely appreciate this partnership we've had ongoing with them. That's the biggest chunk of money we receive. We're completely funded by membership, so we really appreciate that partnership. I just wanted to put that out there. The other comment I heard was from Councilmember Pugh, who mentioned that he would like to see more happening with regards to Native Americans and so on. And I'd just like to let you know, we try to do about one event on average a year with regards to the Narragansett Indians and the Native Americans in the region. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And we have a really exciting event talk coming up in April. You all might have heard of Tarzan Brown, Ellison Tarzan Brown, who was a Narragansett Indian who won the Boston Marathon twice and represented the U.S. in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, which was pretty controversial at the time. And a relative of his is giving a talk about him on April 14th, so right around Boston Marathon time. So I just wanted to make you aware of those things. So thank you very much.
All right, Eileen and then Richard.
Ellen Koima, 109 Westmoreland Street. I will continue with Mr. DiStefano's letter from January 15, 2020. I will start with, in regards, it said, Mannix laughed softly and answered, no one lied in the budget. The budget is a plan. Such an astounding answer needs some clarification. Investopedia defines the word budget as estimation of revenue and expenses, etc. The word estimation, however, gives no wiggle room for putting into the budget an item of income which is clearly and unequivocally not available. I do not know how many state and or federal agencies receive a copy of our budget, but I would certainly be most concerned that such a large item of income, $181,959, is not included in our budget, when it seems virtually impossible that that amount would be realized. One other thought about the meeting of January 6th. Councilor Jesse Pugh put forward a motion to publish the minutes of a certain executive session meetings concerning the sale of real estate that houses Pure Liquors. Stunningly, the council voted 3-2 to release the minutes. When that happened, Mannix looked at Councilor Lima and said, is that your vote? Lima then changed his vote to abstain, and the motion to release the secret session meetings on the sale of the liquor store failed. I am told by legal authorities that this is a total improper under Robert Rules of Order. So, this is my last musing. Is now the time to install an official monitor to observe all of our meetings to ensure that they are conducted in a totally legal and ethical fashion. Ted DiStefano, Narragansett.
Richard, yes.
The first part is a review. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a big fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Now, all the good wishes about the library, all the good things that a library does, all the vituperation we've heard for years, all the mendacity we've heard, all of the folly that one thinks one can have a world-class, state-of-the-art library in a 40-year-old grocery store. All of these will not change the physical and fiscal reality. Not all the money in the world will make the connection of three wholly separate units a success. And thank God we have three people who recognize this, because this is reality, and reality ultimately wins out.
Carleen and then Mr. Combs.
Carleen Town, Wood Hill Road. This is an email I sent to Mark Davis last week with CCs to the 5 council members and Mr. Jim Tierney. Dear Mr. Davis, I have read the rules and procedures for the Narragansett Town Council meetings and would like to specifically address item number 9. It reads, "These are items which the council will discuss individually in the order listed on the agenda. After the council has discussed an item on the agenda, the council president will close the council discussion and will inquire if any citizen wishes to be heard on the matter. It clearly states that the public has the right to speak on any motion. I have been in the audience on many occasions when we have been denied that right. A glaring example of that occurred at the January 6th meeting. On Jesse's motion to unseal the executive session minutes, it was striking to me that Matt only allowed comments from other counselors, you, and Terry Donovan. Even Jill said she wanted to hear comments from the audience, but Matt just steamrolled over her and did not allow any public comment. In fairness to you, I must tell you that I have filed a complaint with the AG's office over this matter, but I don't know if it comes under its purview. Even Phil Cozzolino, the reporter for the Narragansett Times, reported in his article on January 17th that this is clearly against the rules for town council meetings. As legal counsel for the town council, I believe it is your responsibility to advise the council when it is breaking its own rules and regulations. Clearly, you have not done that on numerous occasions when I have witnessed Matt push a vote through without any public comment, even when his co-counselors and members of the audience have indicated that others wanted to speak. There is nothing in the rules and procedures that gives the town council president the right to ignore public comment on any motion, so please do your job and advise the council when it's breaking its own rules. Jesse replied to my email last week, and Mr. Davis replied last night. No one else did. Mr. Davis's reply was, "I can assure you that all town council members understand the rules and procedures. It is my responsibility to advise. I do not have the power or authority to control their decisions." End of quote. Following Mr. Davis's logic is like saying we don't need a police department because we are all aware that it is against the law to commit a crime. Matt wants to blame every controversy on the library. This is not a library issue, but a blow to democracy. This is an issue of our First Amendment rights being taken away from us. Folks, take heed. Your right to be heard is being taken away by this town council, and in particular, Matt Mannix. Don't sit back. Fight for democracy, fight for your First Amendment rights, force the town council to obey its own rules, force the town solicitor to do the job we taxpayers are paying him for, that is, to advise the town council when it is not following its own rules. Thank you.
Yes, that is a joke. If you think you haven't had an opportunity to speak in the last year, that is a joke. That is a joke.
That's why they got to bring a
Go
sign
ahead.
with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a joke.
I got a couple questions for you, and I have a disagreement with Mr. Pugh especially because this is all over town, and you want to run our town, but you can't even pay your own federal bills. Do you have anything to say?
Direct your comments to me,
Okay.
please.
Does he have anything to say?
Well, what do you, what's your,
He's got like this thing, the letters all over town about him not paying federal income tax for years, owes $33,000. How can you be in charge of our town, 16,000 people?
I'll speak on this.
No, I'll speak.
No, you don't have to speak on it. I'm talking to him. I don't want you speaking on it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to.
No, I'm not done.
So
the other thing I got to say is,
All
you
right.
can finish when I'm done. We, the people of Narragansett, are paying lawyers, right? Who are, you people are named in a lawsuit, and we're paying lawyers to be your attorneys, and you're sitting with the libidiots. What is that? That's like, she wants to say something about that. That's like hitting a kid with a car and then sitting with the kid's parents. What is that? You, Murray, what are you, like the puppet? What are you, a puppet? Why don't you get on the, Why don't you get with the local people?
I support the library.
Oh, I don't care. Do you support the town?
I support the bond issue.
Do you
The people
support the
voted for
town?
it. I got a charge from the people to bring us the cheapest and most successful library in the town.
No, you don't. You don't know what you're talking
well, I
about.
don't know.
You
Listen,
don't
when
know
you
what
sit
you're
up here,
talking about.
why don't you run? You sit
I
up
don't
here,
wanna run.
and then you
I don't
do what you
wanna
want to
run.
do. I'm going to
I don't
support the
want to run
folks
because
who
I
supported
am my
this
own
library.
man. I'm not this.
Well, whatever.
I'm not a puppet. Why don't
Well-
you get over there where you belong? I know you're not a native, but, you know, we'll call you a local. But, I mean, you sitting with library people. What is the matter with you? We're paying
I was
tax
proud
dollars.
to sit on the library side
Well,
of
why
that
don't
court
you give
date.
us money back for
Right?
paying our attorneys?
Well-
And you, I hear you owe money in Maine. What's up with that, man? You owe money all over the place.
All right.
This is slanderous. You slander these
all right,
people. You call him Lima, her lawyer, him Mannix. You call him Mr. Pugh, and him Mr. Murray. What's up with that? And you call him a liar. What's You know, I sit home and I watch this, and I can't believe you people. I can't believe it. How you think you can run again? I don't know how you can do it. I think you should resign. I really do. I think you've pulled the wool over everyone in this town's eyes long enough. So you want to answer to me or no?
So where were you? How come you weren't at the court?
I didn't have to be at the court.
Where's your
have
support for your
I have
team?
my support right here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a couple quick comments. I do not owe money in Maine, so I'm not sure about that one. I can see you're not a fan after last week and this week. So I'll address this. So this was actually addressed on Facebook. I think it was posted by a fake Facebook account. But yeah, I do owe money in taxes for previous years. Me and my wife have been on an installment plan for that. We've made those payments over the last few years. We did have an issue last year with the installment plan basically renewing, and the auto debit stopped taking. So we did miss a few payments. We have resolved that issue, and we're back on the plan. So that's basically the full story there. My opinion is that personal financial issue is not really relevant in terms of my ability to serve on the council and to represent the people of town. I do plan on continuing to serve on the council for as long as the people want me to, and plan on running for re-election in the fall. So that's the story. Appreciate you bringing it up, Mr. Combs. And if anyone has questions for me about it, happy to answer them. But not much more to it. So thank you.
Okay, I'm delinquent on my taxes. If this is a confessional, okay? I had a mortgage here. I got a new mortgage, and the new mortgage company didn't send the escrow. So I owe the town of Narragansett $750. And I got 2 notices, delinquent notices. And that's being taken care of by the mortgage company. So if you saw a late property tax bill by me, then I'm fessing up now. Also, my dog isn't registered. I think we should get down to this. I know this is sporadic and it's rogue. If I am a rogue councilman, I will register that dog tomorrow. Terry, I'm sorry about that. I think that's it. But if I do have other infractions, I will let you know. This is pure political nonsense.
Yes.
Susan Amoruso, West Bay Drive, trying to get composure after that confession, so I guess confession's good for the soul. I was in the audience at the last town council meeting, and I did have my hand up, and we were not called on, and there were many others, so that is a fact, and it was against the rules. But what I wanted to talk about was, I think it was even a month ago, there was a woman who was talking in regards to the library, the hot topic, and her contention was, well, I have a computer, I have Netflix, so I'm all set. We don't really need a library. I'm all set. And this is the mentality that I find is growing, getting support from certain members. And I think it's very disheartening because we should be committed to building a community. Because if we start down this road of, okay, and another suggestion was, let's tax the library for the people who use the library. Well, where is this going to end? You know, we could say, I don't use the beach, so I don't want to pay for the lifeguards. The people who use the beach are going to pay for the lifeguards. I never drive down that road, you know. If it snows, figure out how to pay for it, or you pay extra because your road's longer than my road. I mean, we're going down this path of a lack of community, a lack of togetherness, and it's just very disheartening. And now we're bringing out background checks that are unsubstantiated, and we're not following rules. People are getting cut off. And people want to be heard. You know, I also brought up the fact that we passed a bond issue, and you can't understand why people are upset. You don't get to pick and choose what part of an election or a voting process that happens on a particular day to pick out the parts that, no, this is how it is. No, people change their mind. People could have changed their minds about you. Maybe none of you belong up there. Who knows? Where would it stop? You have an election, you vote on a bond, the issue stands, it gets passed, it gets used. This is the only bond issue in 20 years in Narragansett that has not gotten spent, and that speaks volumes. And I just think that instead of saying, like, I don't want to pay for this, I don't want to pay for that, you need to be taxed because you use this or you use that more, that's going down the wrong road. And it really, you know, we heard talk about 2020, it's going to start at the top. I have not seen this start at the top yet. We really need to listen to what people are saying. People want to be heard. People want to send emails and get a response. They don't want to have it like be this vacant thing. You can't get solutions if you can't communicate back and forth. You don't need to agree all the time, but you need to communicate and start thinking of us as united community instead of separating.
All right, is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0.